The story begins under the blazing midday sun, across the vast golden plains of the Serengeti. The ground was cracked and dry. The air, it stood still, as if time itself had paused. Only the buzzing of insects filled the silence, and a thin veil of dust slowly rose beneath the wheels of a crawling vehicle. A safari jeep rolled to a stop along the red dirt road. Inside were a group of American tourists, cameras in hand, eyes wide with wonder. They pointed their lenses toward the horizon, where golden mounds shimmered in the noon heat, glowing like a carpet of fire. At the front of the group was James, a veteran ranger of the reserve. He wasn't a man of many words. No sunglasses, no loud gestures like other tour guides, only his eyes. Deep, quiet, as if the entire map of this wild land had been carved into his soul. Suddenly, a flash of gold burst from the bushes. A full-grown male lion. It came out of nowhere, quick, fierce, roaring with a thunder that shook the silence. Right behind him, a lioness, powerful, her shoulder fur standing on edge with tension. Gasps filled the jeep. Someone screamed. A tourist lunged to slam the door shut. But then, something strange happened. They didn't attack. The lions didn't charge. They didn't growl in threat. Instead, they began pacing, back and forth, right in front of the vehicle. And their eyes, locked, on James, only on James, who stood silently behind the windshield. He didn't reach for his rifle. He didn't shout, "Back up!" He just stood there, watching. And in that fleeting moment, when the eyes of man met the gaze of the wild, he understood something no one else in that jeep could possibly feel. They're searching for something, not territory, not food, but help. James opened the door. The entire jeep went silent, holding their breath. A woman reached out to stop him, her voice trembling. "Are you crazy?" But James just smiled. He didn't say a word. Then, he stepped out onto the scorching earth. Both lions immediately froze. They turned toward him. The wind stirred their thick manes. No growls, no threatening strides, only their eyes, locked on him, piercing, intense, but not hostile. James tilted his head ever so slightly. A small gesture, almost unnoticeable, but in the language of the wild. It was a greeting, a sign of peace, a way of saying, "I'm not here to fight." The male lion, larger, with a long scar slashing down his ear, let out a low hiss through his teeth. He took one step forward, then turned his head back. James understood. Immediately, he wanted him to follow. James looked back at the jeep, raised his hand and signaled, "Stay put." With one hand gripping his first aid kit, and the other holding his radio, James stepped into the bush, following the lions as they moved ahead like shadows. He went deeper into the sparse forest. His boots crunched softly through dry grass, and with every step, his heart pounded louder, not from fear, but from something deeper, something primal. His gut was screaming at him. There's something behind those bushes, something important, something that needs you. The hot wind slapped his face. The grass brushed his chest. The deeper he went, the thicker the air became, as if the entire forest was holding its breath. James stopped. The male lion had veered left, now striding quickly toward a sunken patch of earth. Then, without warning, he roared, but not in threat. It sounded more like a call, Suddenly, from the edge of the dip, the lioness sprang forward, let out a soft growl, and stopped right in front of James. She turned, walked a few paces, paused again, and that's when James saw it. A narrow fissure, 3 meters deep, a long, jagged crack in the earth. He rushed to it, dropped to his knees. His heart pounded. At the bottom, nestled in the eroded red dirt, a small, trembling creature whimpered softly. A lion cub, one leg stuck in a tight crevice, its tiny body shaking, breath rapid, eyes wide with panic and exhaustion. James looked up at the mother lion. She didn't stop him. She didn't growl. She just stood there, eyes glistening, like a mother, completely helpless. And right then, James knew. They didn't come to threaten. They didn't roar to claim land. They abandoned survival instinct, just to ask for help. He grabbed his radio. "I need rope, a shovel, first aid, urgent." In the distance, the jeep crawled toward them. The tourists inside were silent. What they saw was a ranger kneeling at the edge of a crack in the earth, and 2 lions, standing guard, not to attack, but to wait. But what none of them knew was that rescuing the cub wouldn't be easy, because that fissure, it was starting to collapse, bit by bit. James strapped the safety rope around his waist. He gave a quick nod to Malik, a young ranger who had just arrived with the gear. Then he began to descend, sliding down the steep, slippery edge of the fissure. The earth felt like butter under his boots. Just a few steps away, the lion cub lay there, wheezing, trembling, eyes filled with pain and confusion. Above him, the 2 adult lions stood frozen. They let out low rumbles, anxious sounds, never taking their eyes off James. Carefully, he reached for the small shovel, gently loosening the compacted dirt, trapping the cub's leg. Malik lowered the rope, held it tight from above. Suddenly, a section of the wall gave way. The earth slipped. The mother lion's eyes jerked wide. James lost his footing, but somehow he held on. "Hold the rope! I'm okay!" he shouted. The cub was shaking violently now. James reached it, wrapped a soft cloth around its belly, secured the rescue rope tightly beneath its small frame. A sharp gust of wind swept through the trees. Up on the road, the tourists watched, silent, breathless, clutching each other's hands like they were witnessing a life-or-death scene from a movie. Malik began to pull. The rope tensed. James supported the cub's injured leg, slowly, carefully, inch by inch. The little lion was lifted, its wound still oozing, but the fear in its eyes, it was fading. He placed it down on the dry grass. And then, the mother lion charged forward. No claws, no roar. She simply buried her face into her cub. A moment words could never describe. In the distance, one tourist quietly raised his camera, but not to post it online, only to remember the moment a wild creature abandoned its instinct to place its trust in a human. Once the cub was safe, the team began packing up the site. But James, he just stood there, eyes still locked on the bottom of the fissure where that tiny life had just been saved. And in his gaze, there wasn't just relief. There was something heavier, something deeper. "You see something?" Malik asked quietly. James nodded. He knelt down and picked up a piece of rusted metal wire, a fragment of a trap buried deep beneath the dirt where the cub had been stuck. There was no doubt now. This wasn't a natural crack in the earth. It was the remnant of an old poacher's snare, long forgotten, but still cruelly claiming victims. The roars, the lioness's strange behavior. It wasn't just panic. It was a cry for help, for her cub, and for the truth. James returned to the jeep. He handed the piece of wire to the monitoring team. He didn't say much. He didn't need to. Nature had already spoken, in its own quiet way. The jeep rolled on beneath the fading amber light of dusk. Behind them, a pair of golden eyes watched in silence. No hatred, no fear, just stillness, like a silent goodbye. Inside the vehicle, most of the tourists were quiet. No one spoke of lions as predators anymore. They began to look again, not just with their eyes, but with their hearts. A little girl leaned over to her mother and whispered, "I thought lions were supposed to be scary." Her mother replied, voice trembling, "Maybe. We just didn't understand them." James didn't smile. He didn't explain. He simply gripped the steering wheel gently and listened to the wind brushing past the windows. A wind that, today, seemed to carry a message so clear, it echoed in his soul. We cannot speak, but if humans are willing to listen, then nature will tell you everything.